We live in a world where most of us are told what to think or even how to think. But rarely do we pause and ask ourselves, why do we think the way we do? The truth is, the way we frame our thoughts can change everything. The choices we make, the risks we take, and the future we create. Today, I want to share a simple shift. Instead of thinking that, what if we thought this? Because it's not about being smarter than everyone else. It's about choosing a mindset that serves us rather than limits us. This is not just about changing thoughts. It's about changing direction. We live in a culture obsessed with speed. We want faster results, instant gratification, overnight success. We measure progress in likes, in sales, in quarterly returns. And in the process, we forget that anything truly worthwhile takes time. Think about it. When we plant a seed, we don't walk out into the garden the next morning expecting a tree. We know it takes seasons, nurturing, patience. Yet in our careers, our relationships, even our own personal growth, we often expect the tree without committing to the seasons. The problem with short-term thinking is that it narrows our vision. It makes us chase after what's urgent instead of what's important. A company that only thinks about the next quarter might cut costs, push harder, squeeze more from its people. It may see a quick spike in numbers, but it risks burning out the very talent that sustains it. An individual who only thinks about the next paycheck or the next applause might find quick wins, but never the fulfillment of building something meaningful. Short-term thinking gets us results, but long-term thinking gives us legacy. What does long-term thinking actually mean? It means playing an infinite game rather than a finite one. In a finite game, there are winners and losers, a beginning and an end, like in a football match. But in an infinite game, like leadership, like love, like life itself, the goal is not to win, it's to keep playing. It's to keep contributing, to keep growing, to keep building something that outlasts us. When we shift our mindset from, how can I win right now, to how can I keep this going for as long as possible, the way we make decisions completely changes. For example, in leadership, short-term thinking asks, how do I get people to perform today? Long-term thinking asks, how do I create an environment where people thrive for years? One is about extracting value, the other is about creating value. Short-term thinking in business is about transactions. Long-term thinking is about relationships. Customers may buy once if you push them hard enough, but they'll stay for a lifetime if you earn their trust. Employees may work hard for a bonus, but they'll give their best selves when they believe in the mission. Long-term thinking also changes the way we approach failure. In the short term, failure feels like an ending. It feels like we've lost. But if we're playing the long game, failure is simply feedback. It's data. It's one step in the process. Thomas Edison famously said he didn't fail 1,000 times when inventing the light bulb. He just found 1,000 ways that didn't work. That's long-term thinking, to see failure not as defeat, but as progress. And the truth is, long-term thinking requires courage, because it means resisting the temptation of immediate rewards. It means being willing to look foolish in the short run, to endure criticism, to stay the course when others are chasing quick wins. It means saying no to what looks shiny today in order to build what will truly shine tomorrow. It's the leader who invests in people knowing it won't show up on the next report. It's the individual who chooses to learn, to grow, to sacrifice comfort now, because they see the bigger picture. When we think long-term, we stop asking, what do I get today? And start asking, what am I building for tomorrow? And the irony is, those who commit to the long game often end up winning in the short term too. Because people trust them, people believe in them, and people want to follow them. From the time we're young, we're taught to compete. Who's the best in the class? Who gets the highest score? Who wins the trophy? And that lesson follows us into adulthood. We compare ourselves to colleagues, to neighbors, to strangers on the internet we'll never even meet. Competition has become the lens through which we measure progress. But there's a flaw in that way of thinking. When we're always trying to be better than someone else, we often forget to be better for someone else. Competition is not inherently bad. It can push us to run faster, work harder, aim higher. But if competition is our only focus, it blinds us. It tricks us into thinking that life is a race with one finish line, and if someone else wins, we lose. That mindset creates stress, envy, and short-term gains at the expense of long-term impact. Contribution, on the other hand, is infinite. It's not about winning, it's about giving. It's not about outpacing others, it's about uplifting others. The measure of contribution is not whether I did better than you, but whether we both did better because of each other. Think about great leaders. The ones we admire most are rarely those who simply out-competed others. They're the ones who contributed something meaningful, an idea, a culture, a sense of purpose. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't compete with other speakers. He contributed a vision of justice that reshaped a nation. Mother Teresa wasn't in a race with other charities. She contributed love and dignity to the forgotten. Steve Jobs wasn't obsessed with being better than every tech company. He contributed tools that changed the way we live and communicate. Contribution creates legacy. Competition creates rankings. When we adopt a mindset of contribution, the way we work changes. Instead of asking, "How do I win?" we start asking, "How do I help?" A teacher who thinks competitively might want their class to score higher than another. A teacher who thinks in terms of contribution asks, "How do I make learning meaningful so these children grow into curious, confident adults?" One approach seeks validation, the other seeks transformation. And this applies to all of us, no matter what field we're in. Contribution also changes the way we see the people around us. Competitors are threats. Contributors are partners. If I'm competing with you, I'm hoping you stumble so I can get ahead. If I'm contributing with you, I want you to succeed because your success helps us all. It's the difference between tearing others down to look tall versus building something taller together. It's the mindset that turns colleagues into teammates, customers into advocates, and even strangers into allies. It also changes the way we define success. If success is winning, then there will always be someone ahead of us, someone to chase, someone to compare against. But if success is contribution, then the measure is internal. Did I give my best? Did I add value? Did I make a difference? And that's a game you can never lose. It creates a sense of fulfillment that competition alone can't provide. Contribution is contagious. When one person chooses to give instead of compete, it invites others to do the same. In a workplace, it creates a culture where people support each other instead of undermining each other. In a community, it builds trust and resilience. In our personal lives, it deepens relationships because people feel seen and valued, not used as benchmarks. The irony is, when we focus on contribution, we often end up excelling naturally. People gravitate to those who give. Opportunities find those who create value. Trust follows those who serve. We don't remember people for how many times they won. We remember them for what they gave. Nobody quotes the market share of a company 50 years ago, but we still remember the leaders and innovators who contributed ideas, courage, and hope. Competition may get us attention, but contribution earns us respect. Every day we're surrounded by limits. Some are real, the limits of time, resources, or physical capacity, but most are imagined. They're the stories we tell ourselves about what we can and cannot do. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough experience. That's just the way things are. These limitations become walls in our minds, and the longer we believe them, the taller those walls grow. What possibility thinking does is remind us that the walls are often just chalk lines we can step over if we're willing to try. The difference between limitation and possibility is subtle but powerful. Limitation asks, "What can I do?" Possibility asks, "What if I could?" Limitation focuses on obstacles. Possibility focuses on options. When we look at the Wright brothers, for instance, they didn't ask, why will flying not work? They asked, what would it take to make it work? Where others saw impossibility, they saw potential. Where others saw risk, they saw opportunity. And that shift in mindset literally took humanity off the ground. The reason possibility is so powerful is because it opens the door to imagination. Limitation closes it. If you believe you can't do something, your mind shuts down. There's no room for ideas, no room for creativity. But if you hold the belief that something might be possible, your mind gets to work. It starts searching for answers, experimenting with new approaches, connecting dots that others don't even see. Innovation never comes from limitation, it always comes from possibility. Think about children. When they play, they're not bound by limitations. A cardboard box can be a spaceship, a blanket can be a superhero cape, a stick can be a sword. They see possibility everywhere. As we grow older, the world trains us to see limitations instead. We start hearing, be realistic, more often than, what if? And slowly, the imagination that once made us explorers and creators becomes constrained. But the people who change the world, inventors, artists, leaders, are the ones who hold onto that childlike sense of possibility, even in adulthood. This doesn't mean ignoring reality. It doesn't mean pretending challenges don't exist. It means choosing where to place our focus. A limitation-focused mindset sees the problem and stops. A possibility-focused mindset sees the problem and asks, what's another way? It's not IVE, it's determined. Nelson Mandela could have looked at the limitations of 27 years in prison and decided his life was over. Instead, he focused on the possibility of reconciliation, of unity, of a different future for South Africa. That mindset didn't erase the pain or the injustice, but it gave him the strength to keep moving forward with purpose. Possibility also changes how we view ourselves. Limitation tells us to stay within our comfort zones, to avoid failure, to play it safe. Possibility says growth comes from trying, even if we stumble. Someone who thinks in terms of limitation might say, I've never done that before, so I shouldn't try. Someone who thinks in terms of possibility says, I've never done that before, so imagine what I could learn if I did. The difference isn't ability, it's belief. When we shift to possibility, we also give permission to those around us to dream bigger. People feel energized in the presence of someone who sees what could be, not just what is. It inspires teams to innovate, communities to unite, and individuals to step into potential they didn't know they had. It's contagious because possibility thinking is ultimately an act of hope. It says the future can be better than the present, and we can play a part in creating it. Limitations are loud and convincing. They'll always be there, whispering reasons why something can't be done. But possibility speaks to something deeper inside us. The part of us that wants to create, to grow, to expand. The part that doesn't settle for what is, but strives for what could be. We've been conditioned to chase perfection. The perfect grades, the perfect job, the perfect image, the perfect plan. We polish our resumes, edit our photos, script our answers, all in pursuit of an ideal that doesn't actually exist. Perfection is seductive because it feels safe. If we can just get everything flawless, then maybe we won't be criticized, maybe we won't fail, maybe we won't disappoint. But in reality, perfection is a trap. It paralyzes us. It keeps us stuck in fear, waiting until everything is just right before we act. And by the time we're ready, the moment has already passed. Purpose is different. Purpose doesn't demand flawlessness, it demands direction. It's about knowing why we're doing what we're doing. It's about being guided by meaning, not appearances. When you're driven by purpose, mistakes aren't failures, they're lessons. Imperfections aren't weaknesses, they're reminders that you're human. Purpose frees you to move forward even when things aren't neat and tidy, because you're not chasing approval. You're pursuing impact. The truth is, people don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. Nobody is inspired by someone who seems untouchable, polished, and flawless. We're inspired by the leaders who admit their struggles, who show their scars, who stumble, but get back up because their purpose is bigger than their pride. Think of great innovators or changemakers. They rarely delivered perfect products or perfect speeches on their first try. What they had was clarity of purpose. That clarity is what pulled them through failures, criticism, and doubt. Perfection is about control. Purpose is about contribution. Perfection says, don't start until it's perfect. Purpose says, start and let it grow. A musician striving for perfection might never release a song because it's never polished enough. A musician driven by purpose releases music to connect, to express, to inspire, and that music touches people even with its rough edges. Perfection would keep it hidden. Purpose brings it to life. This applies in leadership as well. Leaders obsessed with perfection tend to micromanage. They want everything to be exactly right, which suffocates creativity and discourages risk-taking. Leaders who think in terms of purpose focus less on controlling the process and more on inspiring the people. They ask, why are we doing this? Who are we serving? How do we make progress? That clarity rallies teams, fuels resilience, and creates trust. No one wants to follow someone who pretends to be perfect. People want to follow someone who is real and committed to something meaningful. Perfection also creates comparison. If I believe I have to be perfect, I'll constantly measure myself against others, wondering if I'm as good, as talented, as successful. Purpose eliminates that game. Purpose isn't about being better than someone else. It's about being aligned with what matters to me. A nurse may never win an award, but their purpose in caring for patients makes their work profoundly significant. An entrepreneur may fail multiple times, but if they're guided by the purpose of solving a problem that matters, each failure brings them closer to a meaningful solution. Purpose allows room for growth. Perfection doesn't. If you're chasing perfection, you're stuck in one narrow definition of success. But if you're living with purpose, every challenge, every setback, every unexpected turn can still fit into the bigger picture. You're no longer derailed by imperfection because your focus is not on avoiding mistakes. It's on moving forward towards something greater. What makes purpose so powerful is that it sustains us when things get hard. Perfection collapses at the first sign of failure because failure proves we weren't flawless. Purpose, however, grows stronger in those moments because hardship becomes part of the story. Struggles aren't signs that we're unworthy. They're proof that what we're doing matters enough to endure. Purpose doesn't make the path easier, but it makes it worthwhile. Human beings are wired to seek comfort. We want stability, predictability, the feeling of safety that comes from knowing exactly what's going to happen. It's natural. Comfort gives us rest. It gives us recovery. It gives us a sense of control. But the danger is when comfort becomes the goal. Because while comfort may feel good in the moment, it doesn't make us better. Growth does. And growth rarely happens in comfort zones. Growth requires discomfort, uncertainty, and challenge. It asks us to step into spaces where we don't know the outcome, where we might stumble, where we might even fail. Think about any skill you've ever learned. The first time you tried, it probably felt awkward. Riding a bike, speaking a new language, presenting in front of an audience. None of it was comfortable at the beginning. But you grew because you leaned into the discomfort. You kept wobbling until you found balance. Kept mispronouncing until you got the words right. Kept speaking until your voice grew steady. Comfort would have told you to stop. Growth pushed you to continue. This principle applies to our personal lives and our professional ones. Organizations that cling to comfort, doing things the way they've always been done, avoiding risk, resisting change, may feel stable for a while, but eventually they stagnate. The world moves forward and leaves them behind. Organizations that embrace growth, experimenting, adapting, challenging old assumptions, may face discomfort, but they stay alive, relevant, and resilient. The same is true for us as individuals. If we want to evolve, we must be willing to trade comfort for challenge. The tricky part is that comfort whispers convincingly. It says, stay here, you're safe. Don't push yourself. Don't risk embarrassment. Don't take the leap. Growth, on the other hand, is quieter. It doesn't promise safety, but it does promise possibility. It says, if you're willing to stretch, if you're willing to step out, there's more waiting for you. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens by choice. And often, it's a choice to move toward the very things that scare us. This doesn't mean rejecting comfort altogether. Rest is important. Recovery is important. But comfort should be the pause, not the destination. A runner doesn't grow by sitting on the couch. They grow by pushing their muscles, by running a little farther, a little faster, even when it burns. The couch is where they rest between runs, not where they stay forever. The same is true for us. We need comfort, but we must not confuse it with progress. One of the greatest benefits of choosing growth over comfort is the resilience it builds. Every time we step into discomfort and survive it, we become stronger. We prove to ourselves that we can handle more than we thought. That builds confidence, not because things got easier, but because we grew tougher. A person who never leaves their comfort zone might look calm, but inside they're fragile. A person who faces discomfort regularly might look challenged, but inside they're unshakable. Choosing growth also inspires those around us. People notice when someone dares to step out of comfort. It gives them permission to do the same. In a team, when one person takes risks, learns new skills, or pushes boundaries, it creates a ripple effect. Others follow. Growth is contagious, just like fear is. If we stay stuck in comfort, we unintentionally encourage others to do the same. If we embrace growth, we lead by example, showing that discomfort is not the enemy, but the pathway forward. At the heart of it, the choice between growth and comfort is a choice about our future. Comfort clings to the present, protecting what we already have. Growth leans into the unknown, reaching for what we could become. Comfort asks, how do I stay safe? Growth asks, how do I move forward? And it's that forward motion, no matter how uncomfortable, that shapes us into who we're capable of being. From the moment we are born, we are dependent on others. We are nurtured, cared for, taught, and guided by the people around us. Yet somewhere along the way, many of us adopt the belief that success is about the individual. My career, my achievements, my recognition. We celebrate independence as the highest form of strength. But the truth is, the greatest things we build are never built alone. Lasting success comes not from thinking in terms of me, but in terms of we. When we think only of ourselves, our impact is limited to what we alone can do. And while individual talent matters, it is collective effort that changes the world. A brilliant leader without a team is just a dreamer. A team without shared purpose is just a group of individuals. But when people come together with trust, collaboration, and a shared vision, they can accomplish things no one could ever do alone. History shows us this over and over. The civil rights movement wasn't the work of a single voice. It was the power of many voices rising together. Great companies are not built on the genius of one founder, but on the dedication of thousands of people who contribute their time and talent toward a common goal. Even in nature, the strongest species are not those that compete ruthlessly, but those that adapt and cooperate to survive. Thinking in terms of we taps into a truth deeper than any individual ambition. We are better together. Shifting from me to we changes the questions we ask. A mindset of me asks, what do I gain? A mindset of we asks, what do we build? Me says, how do I look good? We says, how do we succeed together? Me looks for personal advantage, we looks for shared progress. And ironically, when we serve the group, the individual often benefits more than they ever could have by acting alone. A leader who invests in their people creates loyalty, innovation, and trust that elevate not only the team, but the leader as well. Thinking we, not me, also transforms relationships. In workplaces where people think me, colleagues become competitors, trust erodes, and culture deteriorates. In workplaces where people think we, colleagues become allies, ideas flow freely, and people feel safe to contribute. In families and communities, the difference is just as clear. When people prioritize only their own interests, bonds weaken. When people act for the collective good, bonds strengthen and everyone thrives. There's another reason this shift is powerful. Human beings are wired for connection. We find meaning not in isolation but in belonging. No matter how successful someone may look on the outside, if they achieved it all alone, it rarely feels fulfilling. True fulfillment comes when we know our efforts contributed to something larger than ourselves. When we think we, not me, we create a sense of shared purpose that gives our work and our lives deeper significance. And the remarkable thing about this mindset is how it multiplies impact. One person acting alone has limited influence, but when that person thinks we and inspires others to join, their impact grows exponentially. It's the difference between a candle that lights a room and a flame that spreads into 1,000 torches. Thinking me might make us shine for a moment, but thinking we creates light that lasts for generations. It takes humility to think this way. It requires setting aside ego, admitting we need others, and recognizing that our success is bound up with theirs. But humility doesn't make us weaker, it makes us stronger. Because when we embrace we don't just share burdens. We also share strengths. Each of us brings something unique to the table, and together, those pieces create something greater than any of us could achieve alone.